Hey, so far so good. We completed our shopping cart, we completed authentication, and in this particular video, we will be processing payment using Stripe. So once we are logged in right here as a user, we'll be able to see this checkout button. And what will happen is that when we click on checkout, it will be able to create what we call a payment intent in our Stripe dashboard. If I go ahead and click on checkout, this will load the Stripe forms, but also it will do something whenever we visit this page. It will create a payment intent to begin with. So if I refresh right here, it will create what we call a payment intent, and you'll see here we have 180. And another thing that it will do is that it will create an order in our own database. So if I come to my orders here, this is on another page, but still in our application. I will refresh at my orders here. We will be working on this later on, don't worry. But now right here, you can see a few seconds ago, we created this order of 180 right here. And I can view more details about it, where we can be able to see all the products that we ordered, the delivery status, and so on. So this is really amazing. Then another thing that will happen is that whenever we complete filling this page and processing the payment, then our order in the database will be marked as paid right here, and then our payment status here now will be completed at Stripe or succeeded. So let's see how this will work out. So here let's use some dummy data, and I'll use a fake card which is provided by Stripe for testing. So 42424242, a future date and CVC, like that, and I pay. Now it's processing, and you can see checkout success. Now when I check my payment intent here and I refresh here, you'll see that now this payment is succeeded. And then when I come to the orders here and we refresh this page, you'll see payment status is completed. So this is really amazing, and we will be doing this using Stripe. So are you ready? Let's get started. To begin with, I'll start by creating an API that will help us to create what we call a payment intent, and also update that payment intent when we want to. So that is the first thing that we will do before we continue to creating the payment page. So to create this API, we just need to minimize everything here, then go to app, API, and here is where we were creating our different APIs. So here you just need to create a new folder inside API. So make sure API here is underlined, okay, not register. So when API is underlined, create a new folder, and we will call this one create -payment -intent. Hit enter. Then inside this folder, we create a new file called route.ts, and we hit enter. So in order to create a payment intent, we will need to have installed Stripe in our application. So right here, go ahead and say npm I Stripe. Then hit enter. And this will install Stripe in our application. I can start by importing that Stripe. So I'll say import, then Stripe, and this will come from Stripe. We will also bring in Prisma. So we will import Prisma, and this will come from, we say @libs/Prisma DB. Import next response from next server, and down here we can start by loading Stripe. So we can say const Stripe will be equal to new Stripe. We invoke this. The first thing that we will do here is to load our secret key from the environment variable. So here we'll say process.env Stripe _secret_key. And we'll say here as string. So this will be the first parameter, and the second parameter we will pass an object, and in this object we'll just call API version. We'll set this to this one, and I go ahead and save. Now down here, I'll go ahead and calculate a total order amount. So we had done this area when calculating the subtotal here, but we need to do it again on the server, because on the server it's more secure and we don't want anyone to manipulate the amount before they purchase anything on the client. So we have to do this again on the server. So here we'll have an arrow function, and right here we will receive our items. Okay, so these will be all the cart items, and then right here we can define the type. The type will be cart product type, this one right here, and it will be an array. We can use these items to get our total price. So you can say const total price will be equal to, here we will get our items, and we use the reduce array method like we had done before, and these will receive an arrow function here, just like that. It also expects a default value. Now since we are only calculating the total amount, we will use 0 here. So here we'll be having accumulator and item. We will calculate the item total, so we'll say const item total will be equal to item dot price here, and we multiply this by item dot quantity. We return the total now, which will be our accumulator, and we add our item total. We should finally return this total from this function. So after this, we go ahead and return our total price, and I save. So now let's export here an async function which will handle our post request. So we invoke this. We will receive a request of type request, and in here we can write our logic for this API now. So first things first, we need to check if we have a user. So we load a current user. So we'll say const current user will be equal to, we await get current user. This will come from our actions, and we invoke that. Down here we perform a check. We say if we don't have this current user, we can return an error. So we immediately return response.json. Right here we can invoke, and we can actually pass two objects, one for the error, and we can say unauthorized, and then the second parameter also an object, and these can have the status code of 41, meaning that unauthorized. Now that is just to check if we have a user or not. If we have a user, then we will proceed down here. So here first of all, let's say const body will be equal to, we await, and we'll say request.json. We invoke that. Then down here we destructure whatever is in our body items. We will also be passing a payment intent ID, and this will be coming from our body. To clarify things, this payment intent ID, we will either be having it or not. Once we create the payment ID, we will be storing it in the local storage, and then when we perform an update of our shopping cart, we can make use of that payment ID to update our payment intent in Stripe. Therefore, we won't have to create many payment intents in Stripe. So with time, you'll understand how this works. So let's continue down here. We can get our total amount. So we'll say const total will be equal to calculate order amount, and we pass our items after getting them from the body. And here we will multiply this by 100, and the reason is because Stripe takes the payment in cents. Let's create an object that we will represent our order. So here we will say order data. We will have a user. We will set to an object. We will say connect full colon, and here we will pass the ID of the user, and we'll get the ID from our current user dot ID. We will have the amount. We will set this to our total. We want the currency to be in USD. Then right here we'll have the status. To begin with, this will be pending. We will have delivery status. To begin with, this will be pending. We will have payment intent ID, and we'll set this to our payment intent ID that we get from the body. we will have products. We will set these as items. This represents the data that we will be saving in our database for our order. So in Stripe, we will be creating the payment intent, and then in our database, we will be creating the actual order, and we should have the payment intent ID so that we can be able to update this order whenever we make a change on our payment intent. So down here, we'll check whether we have the payment intent ID or not. We'll say if payment intent ID exists. So this is the ID that we get from the body. So if this exists, what we will be doing here is to update the order. Then here we have else. This means that we don't have the payment intent if the payment intent does not exist. So what we will do here, we will create the payment intent, then we'll also create the order. Make sense? So let's start with this one here, since by default we don't have the payment intent. So here we will start by creating the payment intent, and we'll just say const payment intent will be equal to, we await, and we use our Stripe here dot payment intents dot create. We invoke this one, and then we pass an object. We will have the amount, and we'll set this to the total amount. We will have the currency. We will set this to USD. We will have automatic payment methods. We'll say enabled. We'll set it to true. So this is how we can simply create the payment intent. Awesome. And then down here, now we will create our order. In order to create this order, we will need to have order schema in Prisma. So I think we can go ahead and create that order schema. So let's save this file and leave it for a while. As we go to our root here, go to Prisma, then click on Prisma here. We need to create the order schema right here. After our user, we'll say model order, and in here we'll start by having an ID. The ID will be having this. So I'll copy this one up to this point and I'll paste it here. Then we'll be having a user ID, and for the user ID, this will be a string, and we'll say at db dot object ID. We'll be having the amount. I'll set it as float. Currency, this one will be a string. We'll be having status. This one will be string. We will be having delivery status. It will be an optional string. So string and include a question mark there. Created date. This will be date time. And at the end here, we'll set a default of now. We'll be having the payment intent ID, and we'll set this one to a string, which should be unique. We'll be having our products. Now this will be an array of cart products. We don't have it yet, so we should be creating it. Okay, so here we'll have address, and we'll set this to an optional address. We don't have it, we should create it. Then here we should be having user. It will be similar to this one. I can copy this one, then down here I can paste it. So we create this type, and we had created this type on our front end. Let's go to product details. It will be similar to this one, so let's copy this cart product type and we add it here. So the thing is, we don't need to say export. We need to change the formatting. We just need to say type here, and then we should not have the full colons, and this should be starting with a capital, and then right here we should not be having the semicolon, and also remove this equal sign. So we need to do all this formatting. What I can do, I can select this full colon, use Control D, 1 2 3 4 5 6 up to this point, then remove it all together. Then select this semicolon, 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 up to this point, remove that. Now to format this, I can select all strings, Then here I remove the small s, include the capital S. For the selected image, we need to change this to image. We will create a type for the image. Then the quantity, we can use int here instead of number. Then the price here will be float. Now we have another problem here for the image. Let's create that type. We'll say type image will be color, a string. Then we'll have color code will be a string. Now we'll have the actual image, which will be a string. So now this error disappears and this error disappears. We set an address right here. We'll have type, we will have address, and right here we'll have a city, which will be a string. We'll have country, will also be a string. We'll have address line 1, this will be a string. We'll have address line 2, this will be a string, which can be optional, actually optional string for line 2. We'll have a postal underscore code, we'll have a string, and then we'll have the state, and this one will be a string. So we have created this type, this type, this type, and used them on our model here. So this is complaining because once we use the user here, our user should also have the order, like we did here. We included the user here and we included the accounts in the user. So the same, once we include the user in the order, we include order in our user. So here we'll just say orders, space, maybe tab up to this point for formatting, then order, and we use an array like that. Now when we come down here, this is no longer having an error. Awesome, I save. So now I think everything is fine. Let's go to our route. So right here, since we now have our order in our Prisma, we can use that order model to create our order in the DB, but this is not in sync yet with our MongoDB database, so we need to make it in sync. So we have to run npx, then Prisma db push. We hit enter. So now right here, before we create our order, we'll update the payment intent that is at our order to be equal to payment intent dot id, and then right here now we use Prisma to create the order. So we await and we'll say Prisma dot order, and then here dot create. So once you do this, you'll see that this in your case might be underlined, and that is because Prisma is not yet detecting our order, although we had put that in sync with our MongoDB. So what you need to do is to cross and open your VS Code again, and then hopefully it will work out. So try that. It worked for me. So here I'll go ahead and add data, and we'll set this to be our order data, and then right here we will return payment intent. We make use of next response.json and we return our payment intent like that. Okay, now this is for the case when we don't have a payment intent ID, meaning that we don't have a payment intent, and therefore we go ahead and create one. So what of here where we already have a payment intent ID? That means that we have a payment intent, and in that case, first of all, we can update the payment intent using our new total amount. So here we'll say const, we say current underscore intent will be equal to, we await, and we will await stripe dot payment intents dot retrieve, and we invoke this and we retrieve the payment intent using the payment intent ID that we get from the body. If this current intent exists, we'll go ahead and update it. So we'll say const updated underscore intent will be equal to, we await, and we will await stripe dot payment intents dot update, and here we will pass our payment intent ID as the first parameter. Second parameter will be an object, and we will update only the amount to be total. Okay, now down here we should update our order, and we will do two things. We will get our existing order, and also we will update the order if it's there. So we'll say const. Here we will destructure the existing underscore order. We will destructure updated underscore order, and we'll destructure this from. I'll make use of await. We will use promise.all, and here we'll perform two requests. So we invoke that and we pass an array. So we are simply destructuring this and this from this array, and this array should be having two requests. The first one should get us the order. So prisma.order.find first. We invoke this. We pass where payment intent ID is our payment intent ID. This is the first request to get the order. Then here we perform another one dot update, and we invoke this. We pass an object, and we'll say where payment intent ID is payment intent ID. This expects a second parameter of data, and this is now the updated data. So we'll set amount to total, and then we will set products to be items. Make sense? We are simply getting the order here, the one that exists, and then here we are updating. Here now we have the existing order and the updated order. First of all, we check if this existing order exists. So if we don't have the existing order, we return an error. So here we will return next response.json. We invoke it. We will pass the error invalid payment intent, and then the other parameter here will be an object of status, and here the status will be 400. So if we don't have this existing order, we throw an error. If it exists, we'll go ahead and we will return the payment intent. So I'll copy this line here, and that is what we will return here if we have the order. That means that we even updated the order, so we pass the payment intent here as the updated intent. Okay, so here we have an error. It can't access our updated intent, and that is because we limited this to this if statement, while we could have included all this logic inside here. So after our payment intent right here, we should have included all this logic right here in there. So I use the alt top arrow to move it up there. I save to auto format, and now down here you should be having two curly brackets before else, and then you should be having this return, because this logic is inside our if statement there. Make sense? So that is how we can create and update the payment intent. After creating our route, we can close all this, and we need to go to our hooks folder here, use cut, and we'll do some stuff here. We need to handle the state for our payment intent. I'll say const payment intent set payment intent. This will be equal to use state. We invoke this. We pass the types. It can either be string or it can be null. And to begin with, we will not be having a payment intent, therefore it's null. I can remove this console log, and right here at our use effect, we will be saving this payment intent to the local storage, and once we complete payment, we clear it. If we don't complete payment and come back again, we update it by getting it from the local storage, saving it again whenever we make a change to our order. So here we will get it from the local storage. So const, we can say eShop payment intent. We set this to be equal to local storage dot get item. We invoke it and we pass the key. The key can be eShop payment intent. So I'll copy that and paste it here. I will pass this using JSON, so we can have another const. We'll set this to be equal to JSON.pass. We invoke it and we pass our eShop payment intent. Once we have the payment intent, we update our state. So here we'll go ahead and set payment intent to be our payment intent. This is for the case when we just want to get the payment intent from the local storage, but how do we store this in our local storage? So down here we'll create another function that will help us to add that payment intent to our local storage. Before the value, this can be equal to use callback. We invoke that, we pass an arrow function. The dependency array, I'll set it as the payment intent. We will set payment intent. We invoke these. So the value, we'll be getting it right here. So here we can have value. The value will either be a string or it will be null. And also we simply update the local storage. So local storage.set item, we invoke these eShop payment intent. Then the second parameter, we have JSON.stringify. We invoke it and we pass our value. So now we have this function which will help us to set the payment intent. Now we need to export this payment intent and the function that we just created. So at the top here, we first need to define the type. We'll be having payment intent. It can either be a string or it can be null. Now we'll also have handle set payment intent, and this will receive a value which can either be a string or it can be null, and it will return void. Now down here our value expects us to have the payment intent and also handle set payment intent. I save. Awesome. So we need to create a new page for checkout. You can close this, minimize everything, go to app, then we create a new folder, and here we'll say checkout. We add a new file, page.tsx. We will be having another one which we will call checkout client.tsx. So in page.tsx, stateless functional component, we can say checkout. We will return some stuff. Let's copy this one, Control A, copy, come to checkout client, paste here, then let this be checkout client, and this one client. I save that. Okay, back to page. Here we'll be having a div, and we'll have a class name, and we'll set the padding to be 8. Then in here we'll make use of our container component. Make sure it's from our components. And then in here we will have our form wrap from our components again. And then right here we can now load our checkout client, which we have just created a few seconds ago. We pass it like that in our checkout client. The first thing that we can do is to get whatever we have at our use cart, like cart products, payment intent, and handle set payment intent. And then once we make use of a hook, we should mark this component as a client component. So here let's say use client. For now I'll not be doing much right here. I'll just say checkout. We'll create the UI later on. Right now what I want us to do is to create a payment intent by making a call to our API endpoint. So right here I call use effect, I invoke it like that, and in the dependency array we will be calling this again whenever our cart products changes and whenever our payment intent changes. So here we'll check if we have cart products. So do we have cart products? If we do, we proceed in here, and at the top here I can create two states, one for error and one for loading state. I save to auto format. Then right here now, if we have cart products, we will set loading to true. So loading to true. We will set the error to false. So I'll say fetch, and we invoke this. We pass our endpoint, which will be API. Then create payment intent. That is the first parameter. The second parameter will be having an object. We specify the method here, and we are performing a post request, and then we'll be having headers. As here we'll say content type is application JSON. We can now have our body. We will use json.stringify. We invoke it and we pass our data in here. So whatever our route expects at the body is items and payment intent ID. So right here we will pass the items as cart products that we get from our use cart. Then we will set our payment underscore intent ID as our payment intent. So after performing this request, we can tap a .then method. So .then, we invoke this. We will receive a response inside an arrow function. So let's pass an arrow function like this. We'll be having a response. We will set loading here to false. And then right here, we'll perform a check. If response.status is equal to 41, that means that you are unauthorized to perform the request. Therefore, we can send this user to the login. Else, if this is not having an error, we will return here response.json. We invoke that. Now let's define this router. We just need to come here and we'll say const router will be equal to use router, and we make the one from the next navigation and we invoke that. Now this doesn't have an issue. Now here we return response.json, and this will give us back the data that we get from this API. And what do we get from there? The payment intent. So right here, after this .then, we will tap another .then. And in this case, we will get the actual data from our API. So here we will get the data. And then once we get the data, what we want to do is to get and set our payment intent client secret. And we'll be using that to process the payment. So right here, we can add a new state. So we'll say const, and we will say client secret set client secret. This one will be equal to use state, and we invoke this. We pass an empty string. So we'll say set client secret. We will get this from data dot payment intent dot client secret. Then down here, we can now set our payment intent ID using handle set payment intent, and here we'll get this from data dot payment intent dot ID. Now after this .then, we'll have .catch. We invoke it, we pass an arrow function, and here we will have access to the error object. We will set error to true. So set error to true. You can also toast the error here. Right here, something went wrong. I will import that from React.toast. So this is our logic here. Perform a fetch from our API endpoint, and once we make a request to this, it will be a post request. Whatever we do, if we don't have a payment intent, we create it and return it. If we have a payment intent, we update it and return the payment intent. And once we do that, we will come right here. We get the client secret, which will help us to complete the payment. And then here we set the payment intent at our local storage, or rather we update it. And then right here, we throw any errors that are there. We need to see if this works. For that, we need to also set up our Stripe. The first thing is to set up an environment variable. So at our route here, you'll see that we had added this process.env Stripe secret key. This should be an environment variable. So you can copy that one and then go to your .env file right here, and we will add this Stripe secret key. We will be getting this from Stripe. So you can open your browser And right here I already have my Stripe open. So what you need to do, if you don't have an account, just visit stripe.com and then create an account. And if your location is not supported, you can actually choose any location for learning purposes. And then once you are logged in, you'll go to your dashboard and you'll go to developers right here. At developers, you'll go to API keys and you'll see your secret key right here. So you just need to reveal it. I think they'll ask you for a password or not. So copy that key and you'll paste it right here. So I'll go ahead and save that file. Now at checkout client, I am logging payment intent right here to the console. And also I can log this client secret to the console as well. One last thing that you need to do is to make sure that your Prisma is in sync with your database. So I know we had already run this command for orders and so on, but I think you can run it again. npx prisma db push, hit enter, allow access, and you should be able to see this message. The database is already in sync with Prisma. I don't know why this comes here. I don't like it. Let me try to run this command again. npx prisma db push. I don't know if it's that Windows pop-up that comes. Sometimes it doesn't. So let's see. It's still there. I'll be checking on this error return, and I hope it's nothing serious. Okay, you will run your application. So make sure you have at least one item at the shopping cart, and we will check at this price. This payment should show at our dashboard where we have payments here, all payments, and it should come as a payment intent. All these incomplete payments are payment intents. We were trying to pay for something, but we didn't complete the transaction. So we should see this value 102 coming right here once we visit the checkout page. So right here, we will go to the checkout page. We are at checkout. We will check the console. At the console, we should be having a payment intent ID and a secret key, client secret. So you see, we have this client secret key. We have this payment intent ID. At the local storage, we should be having the payment intent ID. So go to here, then application, then here we have I think this is eShop payment intent. Yes, this one, and it ends with BU. So if we go to Stripe, we don't see it immediately, but once we refresh, we should be able to see it. So I refresh, and look, we have it here, BU, and we were trying to pay for 102.99. So this is our payment intent. We are trying to pay for something, but the transaction is not yet complete. Now, if you go to the database, you will be having an order created. So refresh your database and go to order. Now look here, we have this order created, currency USD, status pending, delivery status pending. This status here is for payment status, so it's not yet paid. And then here we have payment intent ID. We have product. So if we expand this, we have one product, which is Logitech MX keys, which we are trying to pay for, and its amount here. Also, we have all this, even the images and so on. So we are having the order and the products that we try to pay for. And this order can act now as an abandoned cart when the status is pending. So this is awesome. This is working nice. And we can test if the order will update once we change our shopping cart and still use the same payment intent. So back to our shopping cart, let's change the order by adding 3 of them. So we should be having 300 here, and we visit the checkout page again. Currently we are not able to use this. We'll work on this button return, but for now let's use at the top here, visit checkout again, and see if our order will update. And we actually have an error, so something went wrong. We have an invalid integer. That might be the issue. So I think we need to cut this to 2 decimal points because Stripe is not supporting it. At our calculate order totals, instead of returning total price, maybe we can have another constant here, const price. We set this to be equal to our total price dot to fixed and here we'll say 2, so it will be into 2 decimal points. And then right here, instead of returning total price, we will return our price. And I think I'll just say any right here. So I'll save that file. Back to our app, I will refresh this page and hopefully we won't get any errors. Let's see. We still have this error here. I'll scroll here. Why is this still this wrong? So here I'll use math.flow since this to fixed is not working. This is an issue with the decimal point. So if you have a better solution, I think you can try it on your side. So here I'll pass the total price and I'll save. Let's see if it behaves the same. Okay, so I'll refresh again here. Now I don't see any errors, which I think is a good sign. Okay, so let's check our payment intent if it was updated to at least 300. So here I will refresh, and here we have 308.00. I'll take that. It's good. So it updated the payment intent. And let's check our MongoDB. It should have now the amount here updated. I will refresh. And now here we have 3800. Now the problem with the math.flow is that we won't have these points as 99 something like that, or .58 something like that. It should always be 00 since I used math.flow. So if you have a better solution, I recommend that you change this to a better one, okay? Because we are losing those points. Now the next big thing that we will do is to complete the transaction. So let's do that next. So now that we are able to create a payment intent, I want us to complete the payment by creating this form, and we will be making use of a Stripe form elements to create it, and then we will be able to process the payment. And once we process the payment, our payment intent will be marked as succeeded. For us to do that, I have already opened some documentation here. If you go to this link right here, stripe.com/docs/payments/quick start, you'll find yourself here. You can make sure to click on React and Node, or you can click on Next.js here. So React and Node and also Next.js, they are so similar, so there is no much difference. So here at server.js, we already did this. I already showed you how we can create a payment intent. We started by calculating the total order amount, and then we created the payment intent. And amazingly, we also added more logic about our order, which is cool, so that we can save some data to our own database. And then here we have app.js, and this is now on the front end. This will basically be our checkout client or checkout page. So from here, what we do, we make use of the use effect here to make a call to the create payment intent endpoint, and we create the intent once the page loads. And then now after that, what we'll make use of is some Stripe form elements. So the form, we will call these components from Stripe to create it. And you can see here we have a checkout form, and you can also follow these instructions to work on it. So most of this code will be similar to what we will be doing. The first thing that we need to do, we installed Stripe already. Now we need to install Stripe React, Stripe.js, and at Stripe.js, and this will give us the different form elements that we need. So I'll copy this link, I'll open my app here, I'll go to the terminal that I'm not using, and then I will install those two. So it completed installing here, and again, this is what you need to install: npm install --save at stripe/react -stripe-js and at stripe/stripe-js. So I'll cross that terminal now. So now from here, we should start by loading Stripe. So if you check the documentation, you can see we are creating this Stripe promise and we are calling load Stripe, and this load Stripe will come from one of the libraries that we just installed, and then we will pass here a publishable key, as you can see here. So here we'll say const Stripe promise, then load Stripe. Let's include this part of the code just before our component here, just like that. We will invoke this, and we should import this from @stripe/stripe.js, just like that. Then here it expects us to pass what we call a publishable key. We will store this in an environment variable. So here we will say process.env and then .next underscore public underscore stripe underscore publishable underscore key, and here we will say as string. So we should create this environment variable. I'll copy this so that I make sure that the spelling is the same. So here we had already added the Stripe secret key. Now we should add this next underscore public underscore stripe publishable key. And we added this next public because we are adding this key on the client, not the server. So you need to do this. Okay. Now back to my browser, I'll go to my dashboard, and if you go to your developers here, then API keys, you'll see we have this publishable key. You just need to copy that and you will include that right here. Okay, go ahead and save that file. Then you can go back to your component. So now we have this Stripe promise, and it will help us to create our Stripe elements. So down here, before we return, we will create some options. Here you can say const options. These will be equal to an object. So I can define the type here. The type will be Stripe elements option, this one, and we can add them right here. We will pass our client secret. So client secret, the first parameter, and then we will pass appearance object here, and we will set the theme to Stripe, labels to floating. At the top, we should create some state to help us know whether the payment has succeeded or not. So here we'll say const payment success, and we'll have set payment success. This will be equal to use state, and I invoke this, and right here I'll pass false. Now down here we'll create a helper method, and we can say const handle set payment success. We set this to be equal to use callback. We invoke this. We should pass here an arrow function, and we should be having a dependency array. Now right here, all we will do is to update our payment success state by calling set payment success. We invoke this and we pass a value. Now this value, we will be receiving it here as a boolean. So value will be boolean. We will make this to be a div. So we return a div. We can add a class name. We will set the width to be full. We will return an elements component from Stripe. So if I come back right here, we have these elements. We are passing our options, and then we are passing Stripe promise, and in there we are passing a form. So what I can do, I can actually copy this right here. So I'll copy that and I'll paste it right here. So we want to show these elements if we have the client secret, and also if we have our product. So here I'll say, do we have cut products, and we load this from Stripe. So I'll bring it in from Stripe React Stripe.js, and for this checkout form we should create it. Let's come here at checkout, add a new component, and we'll say checkout form. tsx status functional component. Here we'll say checkout form. This one, for now we can return some React fragments. And for this checkout form here, we will pass some props. So I'll define an interface for it at the top here. So I'll say interface checkout form props. Also, let's mark this as a client component. So use client. And then right here, we will be receiving a client secret. This will be a string. Also, we will be receiving handle set payment success. So here, we will pass our react.fc angle brackets and we pass our checkout form props. Here we destructure client secret. So client secret and also handle set payment success. So for now, I'll save that file. Then I'll come back to our checkout client and we should now import this from checkout form. I'll pass the client secret and this will be coming from our client secret, which is in state. And then right here, we should have handle set payment success and we should pass handle set payment success. So I save that and now this is our checkout form here. So after this check, I'll come down here and we will check the various states and display the various UIs. So for example, we will check if our page is loading, and here if the payment intent is still loading, we will say that checkout is loading. Loading checkout. We can add some classes. We'll just say text center. You can add more if you want. Now, what of error? So here, if we have an error, we will display a div as well. So I can copy this one, paste it here, and text will be center, but we'll set text here to be rows 500 or 400 will do. And then here we display the message. You can say something went wrong. Now, what about when we have a successful payment? So here we'll have payment success and we will have a div, and in here I'll pass two more divs. So here I'll have div. So we have this parent div, then we have this two div. The first one will just show a message, payment success, like that. And this one will be having a button, and this button can come from our components. We'll say that the label is view your orders. We'll have an on-click event. So here we can say router dot push. We invoke that and we pass order. Make sense? Now here, let's style this one. We will add a class name and we'll say that the text is till 500, and then we'll say text hyphen center. Now right here we add class name first, then we'll say a max hyphen width hyphen a custom width of 220px, and then here we'll say width hyphen full. We come here, we'll add a class name and we'll say flex. Here we'll set items to the center. Here we'll flex call and we will have a gap of 4. So when our payment is successful, we'll be able to see this. When we have an error, when our payment intent is loading, we will see loading this one. Now let's go to our checkout form and we create the various parts of this form. So here we can say const, we destructure the cart total amount, Actually, at the end here, you can start by saying use cart. You invoke that. We make sure to import it. And now right here, you'll be able to get all the cool suggestions like the cart total amount here. So that is what we will be paying. Then here we'll have handle clear cart. So we get the suggestion, and handle set payment intent. So we get those from use cart. Okay. And then here we'll say const stripe will be equal to use stripe. We invoke that and we make sure to import this. So we don't have suggestion for this one, but we'll get this from React Stripe.js. So at the top here, let's import it. We'll say import. We destructure use stripe from at stripe React Stripe.js, and we get it here. We will also get our elements. We'll say const elements will be equal to use elements. Again, it's not being suggested, but these will also come from React Stripe.js. So use elements. Here we can also set a loading state. Now let's come down here. We will load our formatted price by calling our function format price. So const formatted price will be equal to, we call format price. That was suggested at least, and we want to format our cart total amount. We will call a use effect. We invoke it. We pass an arrow function. So this will be equal to an arrow function. We need to have a dependency array. For this dependency array, we will have stripe. So we have this use effect right here. So we'll perform some checks in here. We will make sure that we have stripe. We have the client secret. I think basically that. Then down here, we'll create a handle submit function that will help us to submit the form. And you'll see down here, we are simply creating the form. So that's all we will do in this file. Okay. In here, we perform a check. If we don't have stripe, we will return immediately. So we will call return. That is all we need there. We check if we have our client secret. So if we don't have our client secret, we will also immediately return. Here I'll say handle set payment success, and we'll set these to false. This is all we need to do at this use effect. So I'll save. Now down here, as you saw, we can create a constant that will help us to process the payment now, and we'll say handle submit, and then right here we will have an async call. We will receive an event, and this will be React then dot form event. That is the type. And in here we can write some logic. We can prevent the form from reloading, prevent default. We make sure that we have both stripe. So here I'll check for stripe or the elements. So if any of this is false, we will immediately return. So if we don't have stripe or we don't have elements, we'll just say return. Okay. Then right here, we'll now set loading here to true. And now we can call stripe dot confirm payment, and I pass an object. We will have elements here, and then we will call redirect, and we'll set these to if required. After this, we will tap a dot then method. We will have access to results or result, and we can call an arrow function on this one like this. So here we'll say if we don't have result dot error, what we will do is to toast a success message. So we'll say toast dot success, and here we will say checkout success. So check out success, all payment successful, something like that. We can clear the cart, so we will call handle clear cart now. Since we have already paid for these products, then we can call handle set payment success to true, and then we'll be able to show some nice message and a button to take us to our order, and we will set our payment intent here to null. So when we call this, it will reset our state and also our local storage, so we'll no longer have a payment intent, and when we try to perform another payment, it will create a new payment intent, and we perform a payment on that one, a new payment intent and also a new order. And since here we had set loading to true, we can come down here after this, and we can set it to false. I save to auto format, and this is our logic. So Stripe will get the payment data from these elements right here. So we will return a form, and here we will have on submit. On submit, it will call this function that we just created. So I'll copy that and I'll pass it right here. This form can have an ID, and we'll say payment form. The content of the form, to begin with, we can have a heading, so I'll call a div. So here we'll have a class name, and we'll add margin to the bottom of 6, and then right here we will have a heading. It expects to have a title, and we can say enter your payment details to complete checkout. So that will be our heading. So this is this heading. After the heading, I can have a simple h2, and we'll say that you will enter your payment information. So we have the address information and we have the payment information. So the payment information is basically maybe the card and so on. So payment information, and here we can add a class name, font can be semi-bold, and margin to the top can be 4, margin to the bottom can be 2. So I save that, and you should see it on the screen. Now right here we have another component from Stripe, and this is now called the payment element. So payment element, it is not being suggested again. I hate when it doesn't. And this will come from Stripe React Stripe here. So from this we will get our payment element. We will also be getting our address element, so we can also import it here like that. I save. Now here we get our payment element. You can see we already see the card here, which is cool. We can add some props like an ID, and we can say payment element, and then we'll have options. I add an object in there, and I say layout is tabs. Now I save. Above this we can have the address information before our payment. So above it, let's add a h2. The styles will be the same as this, so I think I can copy and I paste. Then I will remove margin to the top, since we already have this one here, margin to the bottom. And then right here we will have now our address elements. So address element, and we already imported it. We can pass options here. We pass an object, and in this object we'll have mode. We'll say it's shipping, and then here allowed countries. So you can pass the different countries that you want to ship to. Here I'll pass US, and I'll also add here KE. I save, and now you should see that we will have address information. Look, we have address information, payment information, billing address is same as shipping address. If I unmark this, it tells you to select the country. This is really cool. And if you add address line1, it will also show address line2, address line city, postal code. Awesome. So here I'll pass a div, and we can say total will be, remember we had added formatted price, so we display our formatted price. Here we can make these to be bold and maybe big, so I'll add a class name. Padding along the y-axis will be 4, then text will be at the center, so text center. Text will be straight 700. Text will be large, so text for Excel, and then font will be bold. So we show the total there that you are about to pay. I think for Excel it's too big, so we can reduce this to XL. I think, yeah, that is good enough now. We add a button that will help us to submit the form. So button, and it can be self-closing. This button can come from our components, and here we should pass a label. For this label, we will dynamically display the text depending on the state of is loading. So here is loading. If it's true, then we will show processing, and then here we'll say pay now. It expects us to have disabled. This will also depend on whether the form is submitting or not. We check the state of is loading. So here we'll say all, no stripe or no elements. We should add an on-click event. So on-click, I'll just pass an arrow function that has nothing. So by default, the button will submit the form. Okay, so I save, and there we go. So we have created our form right here that will submit our payment information. So now let's test it. It shows now all these Stripe elements. We are about to pay this amount. At payments, let's refresh this and see if we will see this price 411. We refresh the payments here. This is what we are supposed to look for. So we have this other payment intents, and I created this from our live site here, so it got mixed up. Okay, so what we should check for is this one right here, below 180. If we complete this form, it should be marked as paid. Okay, so let's fill in the details. So here I'll choose some dummy information. We have a test card from Stripe, use 4242424242 until the end, until you can't add any more. 4444 for expiration, then 4444 for CVC. This can be any future date, this can be any 3 numbers. Now right here, let's pay. Processing, and checkout success, view your orders, payment success. So if we come to Stripe, we should pay attention to this line right here. Down here, I hope you can see. So I refresh, and let's see if it succeeds. So you see now at the top, we have this succeeded, and this is actually working. Our payment intent has been marked as paid. Now, the only issue is that now at our orders, it will not be marked as paid because we didn't implement logic for that. And for that, we will be making use of Stripe webhooks so that we can update our order once a payment has succeeded. So let's update this checkout button. So I'll open this. We will go to app. Then we'll go to cart, I guess. Here, cart client. And here we have our button here. We should dynamically display this depending on whether we have a user or not. So we should be receiving a user in this particular component. React.fc. And here we will destructure our current user. Now down here, we can make use of this current user. So for the text, it should be dynamic, so I use the curly brackets here, and then right here we'll say, do we have a current user? So if we do, we will show checkout, and if we don't, so here we will show login to checkout. That is the label. We will do a condition for on click. Let's define this router. So at the top, just right here, you can say const router will be equal to use router from our next navigation, and we invoke that. Okay, here we say outline. Awesome. So that is our button. We are conditionally rendering it. Now we need to pass the current user to this component. So at the page right here, we should mark this as an async function, async, and then right here we can now say const current user will be equal to get current user. From our actions we invoke that, and now we can pass this current user right here as a prop. So current user, and this will be equal to current user. Okay, here I didn't pass our cat client props. And come back here. I'm still getting this error. Okay, here I also missed a wait. So now let's test our app. We are logged in, so we see checkout. We click on checkout, loading checkout, so it takes us to checkout, and here it will create a payment intent of 40. You see, 40. That's okay. Now let's go back. Let's log out. Once it's logged out, you'll see here we have login to checkout. So when we click on this, instead of taking us to checkout, it will take us first to login. There we go. It took some time as well. Again, on development, it's because it tries to rebuild each page. That's why it loads much. Now, the next thing is that we will try to update our order once we successfully perform a payment. So now we are able to perform the payment using Stripe, but we are not updating our order for a successful payment. And I told you we'll make use of Stripe webhooks for that. If we go back to our browser, to the Stripe dashboard, you can see here, you click on developers, you'll see we have API keys. Then right there, you will also have webhooks. So for webhooks, you can either add a hosted endpoint, and this is for a site that is live. And usually this is easier to add, but you can also add for local listeners when you are developing your application. So we will do both. We'll start with this, and then later on when we post our application online or deploy it, we will cover hosted endpoints. So right now, if you come to local listeners and you click on add local listener, here you'll have instructions on how you should go about it. So right here, we have a sample endpoint, and this is in Node.js, although we will be doing this in Next.js. So it will be similar, but we'll need to change some stuff. So all we need to do is to create an event, and we'll create an event using this method here, and we pass our request body. Now the thing is, this request body should be raw data, okay? And we pass a signature, we pass an endpoint secret, and then after we get our event, we'll be able to use that event to check its type. So if payment is succeeded, we can do something right here. If we have a charge succeeded, we can do something, and so on. Okay, so to begin with, we will create this endpoint, and then now later on I'll show you how to run it. Okay, so let's go back to our VS Code, and we will do that in pages. I tried to create the API on our app folder, but I just got a lot of issues, so let's do it on pages like we did with our next app. I'll add a new file. We can call this one stripe -webhooks.ts. I hit enter, npm I micro. So this will help us to read the raw data that we need to pass when creating the event. Okay, so I installed that library, and then at the top here we will start by adding a config. So we'll say export const config. We'll set this to be equal to, we'll say API, and here we will say body parser is false. We create a function, so we'll say const stripe will be equal to, we load our stripe like we did before. So this will be new stripe, which we should import from stripe. We invoke it, we pass process dot env, and then dot I pass stripe underscore secret underscore key, and we'll say here as string the API version, and we include the current version of 2022. We export now 100. So here we'll say export default, and we'll say async function 100. I invoke this and we'll do stuff in here. We will receive a request of type next API request, and then I'll receive a response of next API response. All this will come from next. Now in here I'll call const buffer all buff, and this will be equal to await buffer. We invoke this and we pass our request. This buffer will be coming from micro, so we are able to read the raw data. Now right here I'll get the signature, and this will be available in our headers. So request dot headers, and then I include this square brackets, and we'll access the stripe signature. And the request to this API will be made by Stripe automatically whenever a payment has been made or an event has occurred. So we'll be able to call and do all this. So we get the signature like that. Now let's make sure that we have this signature. So if we don't have the signature, we will come right here and we will return response dot status 400. We will say dot send missing the stripe signature. Right here we say let event be of type stripe event, and then down here we can now try to create the event. So we'll use a try and catch block. So here now we'll have the event, and this will be equal to stripe dot webhooks, and then dot construct event. We invoke it. We will now pass our buff, and then here we pass the signature, and we pass our environment variable, which is a variable in process.env.stripe webhook secret, and here you can use an exclamation mark. So I save. Now this is how we have registered our event. Now here, in case of an error, at the end here I add error. Now once we have the event, now we can use a switch statement to check for the different events. So we'll say switch, and then we get our event dot type, and right here we are really interested in only one event here, which is the charge succeeded. So here we'll say if the case is charge dot succeeded, we'll say const charge will be equal to event dot data dot object, and we'll say as stripe.charge. We will confirm if we have this charge by checking the payment intent. So if we have type of charge dot payment intent being equal to a string, right here we will await Prisma and then dot order, then we update the order and we'll make use of this charge dot payment intent. So here we have an issue. I think we can define the type of this charge right here as any, and this should be type of, like that. Let me see if this any has any effect. Actually it doesn't invoke this. We pass an object where we'll set the payment intent ID to be charge dot payment intent, and then it expects now for us to pass the data, and what we want to mark is the status of payment as complete. So here we will update the status to complete, so complete. And you can also now add an address to our order, so address, and here we'll add charge dot shipping, and then here dot address that was used during the payment. Okay, this is complaining. I can just say this to be any, and this will update our order. It will add the status and the address. After that if statement, we will break at the end. Here we will set a default, and here we can just console.log, and we can say unhandled event type. I save to auto format, and now after this switch statement at the end here, you must now return something. So let's say res.json. We can just pass a message here of received, and we set it to true. So there we go. This is our webhook endpoint. So whenever we perform a payment, this charge will be called and we will update our database. We need to have a Stripe webhook secret and run the webhook locally in our machine. Later on when we deploy, I'll show you how to run it when it's live. Okay, so right now, right here, I'll include this, and let's see how we can set up Stripe webhooks locally in our machine. We need to follow these steps here. First of all, we download Stripe CLI, so you can visit this link, and from here you'll see we have different ways of installing Stripe CLI. You can use Homebrew, you can use apt, you can use all this. I'm on Windows and I'll use Scoop. So Scoop here, I'll open it on a new tab here, and you just first need to install Scoop if you don't have it. So in scoop.sh you can copy this command, and we need to do this on PowerShell. So here I'll search for PowerShell and open Windows PowerShell, and then right here I'll paste that command and hit enter, and you'll see mine has already told me that Scoop is already installed, and I don't need to install it again. So now once Scoop is installed, you can run this command to install Stripe. So I can copy this, and most probably this is also installed for me, but I can run it again. So Scoop and Stripe bucket already exists, so you can see this is also existing for my case, but for your case you need to install it. Awesome. Now back to the dashboard here. We need to log into Stripe by calling Stripe login. So you can do this on your normal terminal, I think. So here cmd, and right here, I don't know if you can see, let me zoom. We will say Stripe login. This will ask your credentials, I guess. Press enter to open the browser, and this is my pairing code there. So I'll allow access granted, and there we go. And then right here I come back here. This is how we can forward an event or start our webhook. okay, locally. And this has to be running for the payment in our order to be marked as paid. But once you host, you'll just leave a link here and it will always check for events. Okay, we just need to copy this command here and I'll paste it here. Now we need to forward this to our API endpoint. So that is this Stripe Webhook API endpoint. So right here, I'll say localhost 3000, and then it will be stroke API, then it will be stroke Stripe Webhook. So Stripe hyphen Webhook. Then I will remove this last part. So let's run this and fingers crossed it works. So I'll hit enter and you can see it has run and it has given us a webhook signing secret. So we need this key up to this point. Make sure to copy it well without white spaces at the end. Copy that key and then in the .env file you need to paste it here. Okay, save this file, and now whenever we perform a payment, our webhook here is listening to this particular API and it will fire the various events, and then those various events will be received by our endpoint here, and for charge succeeded we will be able to mark these as paid in our own database. Okay, now let's test this. Let me put this side by side with what we are doing here. Now let's pay this and see if the events will be fired here and if it works or if we will get any errors. So I pay and look, charge succeeded has been fired and we have an error right here of 44. But you can see this charge succeeded event was fired, although we have an error. So we have to figure out what the issue is. So right here you can see it's 404 error, meaning that it didn't find this endpoint. And one mistake that we did is that we included this outside the API folder. So what I want to do is to move this inside the API folder. So I'll move it inside the API folder, move, but it should be outside the auth here. So we move that. We should perform another payment to see now if it works. Okay, include the number 424242424242 444. I pay now and see if our post endpoint will be called. There we go. We have this being called successfully, charge succeeded. This is successful. So that means that our database was updated by this Stripe webhook. It's listening to event and it's sending requests directly once we process the payment. So let's see if it worked. We go to Stripe. Let's cancel there and go to payments. We should have our 70 here is succeeded. Let's go to our database at the orders. And let's refresh. We should have at least one order marked as paid. So we refresh. And now the one that has 70, right here it's 700 because it's in cents. Remember we had multiplied by 100. But look, right here we have status as complete, which is really awesome. Our order is being updated in the database through Stripe webhooks. So now we will work on the next part of our application, which is the admin dashboard. We should be able to create a product. Right here, we will make use of also Firebase storage. We will be able to create this summary. We will work on rich data tables to show the products and to show the orders. Also, we will work on our own orders right here. After that, we should be working on our categories here. Along the way, we should be working on our search here and adding product reviews. So I'll see you in the next video where we will start doing all that. But so far so good. We have completed checkout. We have completed user authentication. We have completed payment and worked with webhooks, and that is really amazing so far. So I'll see you in the next one.